Looks like we got a winner here. Moms demand action. Let's hear what he has to say.
And what particular type of laws would you like to see passed?
Well, particularly in this case, I think that a red flag law is really important. You know, the person who committed the murders at Covenant School was in active treatment for a mental and emotional disorder with a doctor and was still somehow able to legally buy 7 guns.
Yeah, so as far as, do you want to see something like, if you have a mental disorder, you are precluded from owning firearms?
I think that's very reasonable, yes.
Okay, so if you have a mental disorder, you are not able to own firearms. Also, his point before red flag laws, most states have Baker Act statutes, which is kind of just like a general term, which is basically a red flag law. A lot of these red flag laws that they get behind supporting would be a lot more invasive ones, such as significant others or whoever else makes a complaint about you and you can have your firearms taken away from you. It's an easy thing for the government to abuse. Keep in mind, they'll get you in with something that might seem a little bit more reasonable, but the next step is completely insane. So keep in mind where these laws can really, really go. So, he's saying people with issues can't own firearms. Let's move on.
So, for example, this individual was a transgender individual, had gender dysphoria, presumably. Would you like to see a ban on people with gender dysphoria? This is something that's listed in the DSM-5, for example, as a mental disorder.
No, now I would say that would be a sort of a double standard there.
Oh, so he's backtracking. So no longer is it, okay, if you have a mental disorder, you can't own a firearm. No. All he had to do was bring up that the person had gender dysphoria, and there's exceptions for other forms of mental issues. So he didn't really mean his argument right there, or at least he didn't think about it. Nuance Bro is a fantastic question right there, because he basically cornered him into an ideological inconsistency. He was the one that said that he would support removing, Second Amendment rights for people if they have some form of mental disorder. He obviously didn't mean that. Backtracked right away.
I see here on this sign you say ban assault weapons now. What are assault weapons and why should we ban them?
Well, I'd go farther than that personally, but I think that anything with a large capacity magazine, especially the AR-15, you're talking about, that's the most popular firearm in America. It's useless in self-defense. It's useless for hunting. It's only a good gun for attacking people.
It's useless in self-defense. It's useless for hunting. It's a primary hunting rifle. A lot of hunters will use, if you're using a semi-auto rifle, which many hunters are, you are using maybe an AR-10 for AR-15 for maybe some smaller animals. If you're a hunter, I'm not the biggest hunter, but I'm a gun guy. If you're a hunter, let me know down in the comments what you're using for what animals that you're hunting. But to my, best understanding, would be used for maybe coyotes, other smaller animals, and then AR-10, which would have a 308 round. Bigger round would be used for bigger animals, maybe deer. That might even be too small for a deer. Hunters, let me know down in the comments. But he's totally wrong about this. It is an incredibly common weapon for hunting, and saying that it's not good for self-defense, they're fantastic for self-defense. In fact, some could make the argument that it's going to be easier to shoot than a pistol, let's say, for if I wanted my mom to have a firearm in the home. I'd probably rather her have a light rifle than, honestly, a light rifle than a pistol she's not that good of a shot with.
It's only a good gun for killing people.
Do you feel like, for example, that police officers, because if it's only used not for defense of self and others, that they should also be banned from having those types of rifles?
No, the police have a super important and super hard job.
Great question from Nuance Bro, because he's finding ideological inconsistencies here. Oh, well, if it's not good for defending yourself, then why would police need it? Guy's saying, oh, well, that's an exception. That's an exception. What? You're now going back on your point that they are bad for self-defense. If they're bad for self-defense, why would law enforcement need to use it?
And I don't see a single AR-15 out here. Well, I'd say this is probably a considerable This is considerably dangerous having all these people here unarmed. Somebody could pop up here any second. But I don't see any police with an AR-15 here. Do they have them in their cars? Probably. But are they carrying them around now? No. And that's the difference between what should be living in America, living in a free democracy, and living in a dictatorship.
Okay, now he's just throwing out random arguments. First of all, yeah, they probably have them in their cars, and Americans probably don't conceal carry an AR around with them, right? They probably have them in their homes, right? Because that's just the basic concept of maybe you don't want to carry it around because it's way too big. But also right there, we have an anti-gun activist saying that he not only wants to take away rifles, but also has made it clear that he wants to go even further than taking away semi-auto rifles, and is saying that's the difference between. He's just saying it's a it's a dictatorship. Is that what he's getting at right there? It's a dictatorship if you have those guns, or is he saying because they're not walking around with rifles? The dictatorship comment doesn't make sense. But if he's saying that allowing people to have those firearms and allowing people to have those semi-auto rifles is that dictatorship, if he's calling that a dictatorship, then he very clearly doesn't know what a dictatorship is.